I posted a nude selfie with my lover wearing his ring. He unfollowed and blocked me publicly. I am engaged to be married. My fiancé and I have been together for over 2 years, and earlier this year we officially began planning our wedding. Until recently, I believed our relationship was stable. We had no significant history of distrust or infidelity, and I had every expectation that we would move forward into marriage without any incident. Several months into our engagement, I began an affair. This was never something I had planned or sought out, as I deeply loved my fiancé and had been genuinely overjoyed when he proposed to me, and still is. However, circumstances shifted when I met this man through mutual acquaintances. Our initial interactions were ordinary and unremarkable at first, but over time they developed into more personal conversations and an unexpected sense of connection. That connection progressed into a physical relationship, and despite my awareness of the emotional and moral implications. Throughout the course of the affair, I took deliberate steps to conceal it from my fiancé. I did not want to cause him pain, as he had always been kind, attentive, and unwaveringly loyal to me. He had never given me reason to doubt his faithfulness, and I was fully aware that revealing my actions would deeply wound him. As a result, I maintained strict secrecy, ensuring that our interactions remained hidden and that no trace of the relationship would appear in any space my fiancé could access. I do not believe I would have found myself in this situation if my fiancé had been in good health at the time. We are both sexually active, though my sex drive has always been higher, and I am typically the one who initiates intimacy, and he has never rejected me before. However, earlier this year, he suffered an injury after falling down the stairs at work, which required minor surgery and several weeks of recovery. During that time, his doctor advised him to rest and avoid any physical activity that could cause strain, which included sexual activity. I accepted this. After all, it wasn't his fault, and I tried my best to support him through his recovery, holding myself back despite my own desires. It was a difficult time in my life, and it was during this period when my needs were going unmet, and my attention was focused on caring for him, that I met the man who became my lover. When the dynamic of my relationship changed because of the man I had met, I tried to convince myself it was nothing serious and wasn't going to lead anywhere. At first, it started off as just casual conversation, a distraction from the stress I was under at home. I believed that it wasn't going to lead anywhere, but the more we talked, the more I noticed the attention he gave me and how much I missed feeling that way. I was already struggling to keep my needs to myself, and being around him made it harder to pretend I was fine. It's not easy to ignore something you want when it's right in front of you. I kept trying to pull back, to create distance, but eventually I stopped resisting. Letting things turn physical felt like the point where I knew I couldn't undo what had started. That was the beginning of what would eventually destroy my engagement. I have always believed that it's possible to love two people at the same time, but that in the end, what matters is the choice you make about who you want to build your life with. For me, that choice was always my fiancé. I was committed to marrying him, to spending the rest of my life with him. What happened wasn't about him failing me or me falling out of love with him. It was about timing. He couldn't meet my needs in that moment because of his recovery, and I told myself that wasn't his fault or mine. It was just the situation we were in. I'll admit I'm not good at taking care of sick people. I try, but I get overwhelmed easily, and sometimes I was exhausted from looking after him. There were days when I felt guilty because I wanted to do more, but I just didn't have the energy or patience. There were also times when his need for care and attention clashed with my own needs, and I hated feeling resentful about it. I wanted to be fully present for him while he recovered, but the truth is, I wasn't as good at it as I wanted to be, and that left me feeling like I was failing him in another way. There was one particular time that still stays with me. I was with my lover, and my fiancé kept calling my phone. He needed me to help him carry the laundry upstairs because he wasn't supposed to lift anything heavy while he was healing. I ignored the calls because I was in bed with my lover and didn't want to stop. He didn't even know I wasn't around. I think he realized that later, after he managed to do it himself. At that moment, I was too tired and too drained to deal with it. But later, when I finally looked at my phone and saw the missed calls and messages, the guilt hit me. I knew he wouldn't have asked for help if he could have done it himself, and I had chosen to ignore him. In a way, it made me start to resent him, even though I never said it out loud. I told myself it was his fault I was becoming someone I didn't want to, and was doing things I knew I wasn't supposed to do. But I never voiced that to him. Instead, I kept it inside and let it eat at me. When I was alone, I would cry hard, not just because I felt bad for myself, but because I felt bad for him. He had no idea what was happening, and I knew he didn't deserve it. My lover was rough and possessive in bed, and after so many times together, my body had gotten to him in a way that made it hard to walk away. Even when my fiancé recovered and things could have gone back to how they were, I didn't stop. I was already in too deep, and part of me didn't want to because I enjoyed what we had. Still, in the back of my mind, I planned to end it eventually. I didn't want to bring this into my marriage, and I knew I couldn't keep living with that kind of double life forever. I never told my lover I was engaged. Even though he meant nothing serious to me, I didn't want to risk complicating things. Every time I went to see him, I would take off my engagement ring and put it back on as soon as I got home. But one day, I forgot to take it off. When he noticed and asked about it, I told him it was just something I wore for looks, that it wasn't actually from anyone. I even joked that maybe it helped keep other men from bothering me, since I already had someone in my life. I was referring to him as that someone. I said it lightly and sweetly, just enough to move the conversation along and keep him from asking anything more. He believed me without hesitation and bought the story completely. I remember him smiling in that quiet, satisfied way, like he was pleased with the answer. That day, we ended up having sex, and it was intense. I could feel it in the way he moved and the way he held me. It was as if hearing that made him feel more important, and his energy, his thrusts, and everything else we did felt fueled by that sense of being valued. From that day on, I never took off my ring when I was with him. The lie I told him was enough to make me feel comfortable wearing it around him without worrying. A few days later, my fiancé confronted me about seeming distant. He asked if I was having cold feet with the wedding getting closer, or if maybe I was just stressed. I told him no, that it might seem that way, but that wasn't the case. To ease the tension, I initiated sex that night. We ended up in bed, and while we were together, my mind drifted. In a strange way, I imagined my lover there with us, the three of us together, and it made the intimacy feel wild, thrilling, and more exciting than it should have been. I would never dare ask my fiancé for a threesome or to try anything like that. It would destroy our relationship. He's not that kind of person, and neither am I. At least I didn't think I was. I don't know why those thoughts even started, but it was probably because I was now sharing my body with two different people. Still, I never wanted it to actually happen in real life. Just imagining it was enough for me, because I knew making it real would cross a line I couldn't come back from and ruin what we had for good. So I decided I was just going to stick to fantasizing about it, and my fiancé seemed to enjoy the way things were between us. I was going to keep it that way for as long as it worked. I wanted his happiness as much as mine, even if most people wouldn't agree with how I was going about it. But in my mind, why stop if it made our intimate moments together better, especially with the person I loved most? But like I said, I was always going to stop before the wedding. I knew I had limits and where I shouldn't push things any further. Another reason I held on to my lover was because he had a great size, big and satisfying. Combined with the kind of intense intimacy we shared, it always left me overwhelmed in the moment. I never compared him to my fiancé in a way that made one better than the other, but I knew he was slightly bigger, and the way he moved was different. I wanted more of that difference. My fiancé was also good in bed, but they were good in different ways. On top of that, my lover spoiled me. He liked spending his money on me, and I enjoyed the attention. My fiancé spoiled me too, and I wanted to keep enjoying both sides of it, the princess treatment from each of them. I loved it. Most of the time, when my lover bought me something, I told my fiancé it was a gift from a friend. He believed me because he knew I had no reason to be getting things from another man, especially when he was already doing everything he could for me. Sometimes I pitied him, and I would remind myself that the wedding was happening, and I needed to put an end to all of this. I was grateful he didn't know about the affair, because I knew it would break him. Hurting him was the last thing I wanted, even though I already was. Then one day I was with my lover. He enjoyed telling me what to do, given how possessive and dominant he was, and I usually gave in. He'd get me to try things I normally wouldn't, but I did them for him. That day, after we had sex, we were lying in bed when he started talking about taking things further. The moment he said it, I knew in my head that this was the point I'd have to cut him off after that day, because I couldn't go there. I told him I wasn't ready, but he insisted I was, and that I'd realize it soon. After that conversation, we changed into something softer. Then, we were talking about sweet, random things, and holding each other for a while. Then out of nowhere, he said we had never taken a picture together and that he wanted us to. I didn't have a problem with it. In my head, I backed myself up with the idea that the picture would just stay in my phone because I was never going to post it and could delete it any time. Besides, I had already decided I wasn't planning to see him again after that day. And if he ended up posting it himself, and it somehow went viral, and my fiancé happened to see it, I already had a story ready, depending on his caption. I could say he was an old classmate I ran into, or a classmate who had always liked me, but I never saw him that way, and apparently, he never got over it. I was confident I could sell that story well if it came to it. I told him we could take the picture later, once we were dressed and about to leave. He said no, he wanted it now. I said I should at least get dressed first, but he refused. That's when he told me he wanted a nude selfie, and he wanted the ring to be visible. For a moment I felt uneasy, almost like he was crossing into something controlling in a way that scared me. But then I reminded myself that I was the one who had lied about the ring, saying I wore it to protect myself from other men because it showed I belonged to him, and in his mind, he thought we were truly a thing. In a way, it felt like it was my fault that things had reached this point. I guess from that day on, he truly believed we were something serious. I didn't know how to say no to him, but I tried. I told him I had never done anything like that before and that it was just crazy. He brushed it off, saying he wanted it, that it wasn't a big deal, and that couples do it all the time. I could have argued that we weren't really a couple and that I was done, but knowing the kind of person he was, I didn't want things to spiral and ruin my life or what I had planned. It was just a nude selfie. Fine, I told myself I would do it. It's not like I was going to post it, right? That's what I thought at first. So we took the selfie, the ring visible, while in my mind I was already thinking ahead. Then came the part I didn't expect. He asked me to post it. I said no immediately, that there was no way I was putting that out there. He looked at me and asked why, almost like he was offended by the refusal. I didn't like seeing him offended. In that moment, he reminded me of one of those dark male leads in a romance novel, the kind who would do anything to get what they wanted. As much as I liked the idea of that in fiction, I didn't want it happening in real life, not with what I stood to lose. I thought about it for a second and told myself my fiancé wasn't really active on social media. He barely posted and was more focused on living his life offline, especially on Instagram, so there was no way he'd be online at that exact moment. I decided I would just post the picture, and the moment I left, I would delete it, block my lover, and remove his contact from my phone, long before my fiancé even had the chance to come online and see it. My lover asked me to tag him in the post so he could repost it. I hesitated for a second, but then figured it didn't matter. I was planning to take it all down soon anyway, and the same went for him in my life. So I did exactly what he said. I posted the picture and tagged him. I didn't even bother checking if my fiancé was online because I was certain he wasn't. He's never online. After I posted the picture, I was ready to leave so I could get rid of everything before anyone noticed. Thankfully, none of his family were on my social media. They've never been active online, so I wasn't worried there. And if any of my friends saw it, I knew they'd probably call me first to ask what was going on. They've always had my back, so I wasn't too concerned about them either. But just as I was about to leave, my lover asked if we could go one more round, and I agreed. When we finished and I was getting dressed to go, I got a notification. My fiancé had liked the picture. My heart dropped. I opened Instagram immediately, and there he was, online. Before I could even process it, I saw that he had unfollowed me and blocked me. Panic set in instantly. I grabbed my bag and rushed out. My lover asked what was wrong, but all I said was that it was an emergency, and I'd explain later. I deleted the post instantly. As soon as I got into a taxi, I blocked my lover's number and unfollowed him on every social media account. My heart was pounding harder than it ever had before. I couldn't understand why my fiancé would come online at that exact moment. He almost never does. It felt so unfair, like the worst possible timing. In that moment, it was hard not to believe that maybe this was some kind of punishment from God for neglecting him when he was not in a good health condition and for living a double life. There was nothing I didn't think of. My mind went through every possible story I could sell. I considered saying I had been abused and forced to take the picture, but that wouldn't work. My fiancé would instantly know I was lying because I had tagged the guy and added a caption claiming he was mine. No abuser would want their face out there like that. And with the wedding just weeks away, I was desperate to find a way to save myself. I didn't know exactly what I was going to tell him, but I've always been better in the heat of the moment. Maybe when I saw him, I could make something up. If I couldn't, I would just confess and apologize, telling him it was a dare and a game my friends made me play. I figured I'd text them first to make sure they'd back me up, but before I could, one of my friends sent a message in the group chat saying my fiancé had asked if we were together, and she had told him no because he said he wanted to talk to me and would switch to a video call when I got there, since they'd told him I was in the bathroom. She was out shopping with other friends, which meant there was no way she had checked Instagram and seen what was happening, but she was glad I had already taken down the post. When they asked the details of the whole affair, I just told them I'd explain later. By then, it was clear my fiancé had already prepared himself in case I tried to lie. There was no way out for me. I knew he was going to make things difficult for me. So I got home ready to confess and do whatever I could to win my man back. When I reached the door and knocked, he didn't even open fully. He just told me to go back to where I was coming from. He said I wasn't his anymore, that I had already chosen someone else, so I should stay with that person. He said there was no reason for me to return to him, that I couldn't eat my cake and have it. He didn't give me a chance to explain or say anything. I cried and ran back to my friends, where I told them everything. None of them knew how I could change his mind, and honestly, I didn't either. Right now, I'm at the risk of losing everything, and from the way he spoke, it felt like he never wanted to see me again. Update. A few days later, nothing had changed. Since that night, my fiancé has never let me back inside. Instead, he told my friends to tell me to come pick up my things. At first, I thought that might be my chance to win him back, but I was wrong. He had already packed my stuff and left it outside. Then he told me he wanted the ring back. I refused, telling him that if I still had it, then maybe we were still engaged. Plus, he hasn't officially called it off yet. But he looked at me and said I should know by now that he didn't care about me anymore. Then he told me if I didn't give it to him willingly, he'd cut my fingers off and take it himself. I gave it up right there because I was scared. In that moment, he reminded me of my lover. He had this dark, heavy energy. And this all happened the very next day after everything went down. I left his place, completely heartbroken. He went on all his social media platforms and posted the screenshot of the nude selfie of me and my lover. Alongside it, he announced that he was calling off our engagement and explained exactly why, narrating the story for everyone to see. When I found out, I was shattered. I cried until I couldn't anymore. Since everything is officially public, which means we were over, but I couldn't accept that fact, I started showing up anywhere I knew my fiancé might be, near his workplace, at places he usually went, even around his neighborhood. I didn't care how people were looking at me. I loved him too much, and the thought of losing him forever and erasing the future we had planned was unbearable. I just wanted him to see me, to talk to me, to give me some kind of chance to at least explain. But instead, he told me to stop following him, and when I didn't, he went to the police and got a restraining order against me. He made it clear to them and everyone else that he felt unsafe with me, showing up uninvited and ignoring his boundaries. That was the moment I realized there was nothing left. Going back to my lover wasn't an option either. If he ever saw me again, I was sure he would hurt me, maybe even kill me. Since then, I've been doing everything I can to hide from him, living in a constant state of fear and regret. My family has been calling me nonstop, but I haven't answered, and I don't plan to. I wish I had ended the affair the day after it started, or even just a day before my ex-fiancé found out. Better yet, I wish I had never started it at all. None of this would have happened. Right now, I just feel like disappearing, running away to somewhere no one can see me, No one can talk to me. My heart feels unbearably heavy. I am aware of the gravity of my actions. I knowingly wore his ring in an intimate photograph with another man and made that image public. I am still processing his reaction, the complete cutoff, and the fact that our engagement appears to be over without any direct conversation.